This is genuinely insane, as a brand new article has revealed a trade proposal with the Minnesota Wild involving Ryan Hartman to the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to be breaking down this full trade, going over what this would bring to the Minnesota Wild and why this is probably one of the craziest things they could possibly do. And we also have an update on a Kirill Kaprizov contract extension that hopefully is coming over the next coming days and weeks. We have a lot to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. Before we do get into it, though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We are less than 100 subscribers away from 2,000 with the ultimate big goal of 5K. I know it's a long way yet, but your guys' support's been absolutely incredible on these videos as of late, and we have a lot more news coming now, as reports are saying the trade market is going to start heating up. And this is where this starts off with a trade involving Ryan Hartman to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I want to pull up our first bit of the article here and kind of going over a bit of Ryan Hartman. Of course, he is the kind of the face of this trade, going over what we saw last season from him. A bit of a down year, 26 points in 69 games played. 30 years old, now going on to the second year of his 3-year extension, and is a player that has been a pretty valuable asset for the Minnesota Wild over the past few seasons. He's brought a lot of versatility, whether that is on the wing, on the center, physicality, a little bit of too much physicality on occasion with multiple suspensions, but the Minnesota Wild have been using Ryan Hartman in many different assets across the past few seasons. But when we do take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, it does seem like they are looking for a guy just like Ryan Hartman, including this trade where they would go and get just Ryan Hartman in exchange for Nick Robertson, Cade Webber, and Calle Jarnkrok. Now, immediately, this deal does not seem like something that any Minnesota Wild fan would want, especially with what Ryan Hartman brings to us, even if he is going to be this season on the third line. Now, when we do take a look at this, there's really one name that stands out, which is Nick Robertson. He's really the only name that I think a lot of people will readily know. Of course, Calle Jarnkrok as well would likely be one, but he's more of a kind of a back burner on this, with Cade Webber being another interesting option that we're going to jump into here in a moment. But when we do take a look at Nick Robertson and going over, Ryan Hartman's contract in a moment, when we go take a look at Nick Robertson, he's a player that's been very much up and down over the past few seasons, and now kind of finding a spot now with this Toronto Maple Leafs team over the past two, with 69 games played this year, 22 points, 27 last year, and 56, when it looked like he was going to be much better than what he is currently. And he is currently an RFA, of course, 5'9", 178, not the biggest guy either, a very similar kind of build to Ryan Hartman, a little bit smaller, but does not bring any bit of the physicality that Ryan Hartman brings to his NHL game. And when we look at Nick Robertson as a guy who can put the puck in the back of the net, he's only really starting to do that. 14 goals, 15 goals in the past few seasons, and is someone that, a lot of kind of question marks are still surrounding him and what his tenure in the NHL, not even just with the Maple Leafs, but in the NHL, will bring to any team that he is gone to. Now, when we do take a look at Ryan Hartman, of course, he is not by no means yet getting old, an invaluable asset. A $4 million contract for Ryan Hartman for what he brings, playing the wing, playing center at 30 years old, going to be 32 when it expires. That's a perfect deal for what he brings to this team. It may seem a bit expensive for non-Wild fans when they do take a look at a deal like this, but we know from watching these games day in, day out, how important he has been to any team that the Minnesota Wild have brought into a game. So kind of getting rid of him for any of these players, really, without having a pick or more of a star here involved in this trade, really just seems like something that is just a complete kind of crazy move to make. But we do have kind of another little bit here that I want to talk about in Cade Webber. He's a guy that really brings some stuff to this game, and Calle Jarnkrok, as I mentioned, 7 points, 19 games, is just a little throw on top in the final year of his deal. I believe it was a 4-year, $8.2 million deal or something, so you can kind of work it out there. Kind of just a throw on top there, and going on 34 years old. Would be an alright bottom 6 guy for any team, but really, we don't need any on this Minnesota Wild team, which I think is our biggest issue right now and biggest kind of concern surrounding him and what this trade would bring. But when we do take a look at Cade Webber, he is a very interesting prospect because he is born in 01, he is 24 years old, shoots left, but is 6'7" and 212. Now, the Minnesota Wild do not need any more defensemen, not in the NHL, not on the prospect side of things. We already have too many as it is. So any other trade, as I mentioned, any other team likely would be very interested in Cade Webber for a guy like Ryan Hartman if they don't bring as much to their team as he would. But for this Minnesota Wild team right now, the way it plays out, the way everything kind of works together to make this deal happen, it just doesn't make sense right now for this Minnesota Wild team to go out here and take a look at, this trade as an option that would help this team now. Because when we do go take a look at the offense, of course, for this Toronto Maple Leafs team, they have one blaring hole there on the left wing and second line to be able to get a top 6 talent, and that means moving Matthias Maccelli over to left wing, probably putting Ryan Hartman there on the second line. That would make a lot of sense for them. Now, going to take a look at what the Minnesota Wild lines would look like, you get rid of Ryan Hartman there, who's currently listed as the number 3 center, and of course that will likely change by the time the season starts. You realistically throw Nick Robertson in maybe on the 4th line. That's really the only player that would make this lineup in opening days. So we saw Bill Guerin say he wants to make this team better right now, whether that means trading prospects or not. This trade completely erases what Bill Guerin had to say and kind of goes back on every step. So although this article kind of puts some things out here that could be a bit interesting for the Minnesota Wild, right now, in the way that this team currently stands, is not at all what this trade needs for this Minnesota Wild team. So let me know what you think about it. I've seen some kind of replies to the tweets and stuff coming out about this, saying that this is probably the worst deal that the Minnesota Wild could do right now, and I I completely agree on that standpoint and where things currently stand with this team, that, you're making the team worse in that instance. But we do want to move on to another little bit of a contract update for where this team is going in the future. And as I pulled up the lines once again, there's probably one big hole that one big kind of update or notice that you see there, and that's Kirill Kaprizov heading into the final year of his deal. We remember 5 years ago when the deal was signed, how much kind of worried there wasn't a lot of Wild fans going over the contract. Would he re-sign or not? It did take a while, but it worked out good. And now coming to take a look at what we have here from Chris Johnson on Kirill Kaprizov's extension. This comes from the July 15th edition of the Steve Dangle podcast. I believe he'll get more than Draisaitl. It would not surprise me if he got something like $15 million. Now, this is something that I think we've all come to terms with, that it's likely going to take quite a big contract to be able to get Kaprizov back with, zero hesitation. And whatever it takes, it's going to have to take. We're ready for this. We know that's going to be the case. And from what we've seen in the past and kind of the last few years about all these contract rumors and the NHL cap going up, we can take a look at the Wild, what they're going to go and, close on next year, $45 million. Because this year's contract is still locked in at $9 million. It's going to work out fine. Of course, this would entail Marco Rossi not being re-signed and also going to look at the future contracts. But whatever the Wild need to do to get Kirill Kaprizov back needs to happen. They cannot risk going out and letting up a guy like Kirill Kaprizov hit their UFA market, knowing that teams will pay him for after 41 games in the season due to injury, of course. And if he stays healthy next year, this could be an absolutely record-breaking season across the NHL. 56 points in 41 games last year, and we saw what he did at the end of the season. Even his defense last year was good. His shooting percentage was great. He brings everything to the table for the Minnesota Wild. This contract is going to be a big one, and reports are starting to heat up about this once again, as we know a contract was coming soon. But that's all I got in this video. Let me know what you think, first of all, about the trade involving Ryan Hartman, and then going on to the kind of signing that we're expecting of Kirill Kaprizov. And what number would you be confident in giving Kirill Kaprizov in this case? But like I said, that's all I got. If you did enjoy it, give it a like, hit the sub button. Remember, we're on the road to 2K. We're less than 100 subscribers away. And if you're watching right now and have not hit that button already, you're obviously looking for your Wild news, so be sure to do so. But that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.